Hi, this is Sally Lynn MacDonald with Gel Press, and today I'm going to be showing you magazine image transfers. If you want to take a look at all of our different image transfer techniques, I'll be linking it down below, but it's gelpress.com/image transfers. Today we are going to be tackling magazine image transfers. Now, I've been doing a lot of research on this. Birgit Koopsen had done some work with this where they were using acrylic paint to adhere to the print, and I found it to be a technique that wasn't easily replicatable, and I don't typically jump on board if I find something not to be easily replicatable, something that I could do in a classroom and have everyone be successful. So that's where my wheels started turning about why or how I could make it work better, and I went back to other techniques I had done, most notably the newsprint image transfer, and that's where I figured out how to make it work better. So you can't use every magazine. So high-end magazines such as Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, they tend to work great. I don't want to call them lower end, but less pricey magazines such as Teen Vogue and 17 don't work. And it comes down to multiple factors, including the paper that they are printed on. I believe it has something to do with any amount of recycled content, as well as the ink that's used to print them. So your daughters and sons are safe. We won't be printing Justin Bieber's face today. But we're going to be working with Vogue and Elle and a bunch of images to show you how this works. So this technique does not use the typical material that we use with a gel press plate. Typically we would use an acrylic paint or even alcohol ink, but this one works really great with oil pigment sticks. One step, easy to work with. So let's go ahead and do it. I'll show you how it works and we'll go from there. Here is a gorgeous looking print. Now, what I like about this is that there's high contrast. First of all, it's really great that it has a frame. That's just fun to work with. But a lot of high contrast. The image has lots of different shapes, and you can see a big contrast between the background and the foreground. So, and it also is, this one was great too, honestly. Either would work great. And you want to be able to tell if the technique is working, you need to be able to see through the paper to what's on the other side. So you don't want it to be so dark on the other side that you can't see, and that's just during the process. I'll show you how that works in a moment. So I'm going to start and show you. These are R&F oil pigment sticks. These are the only ones that I have found to work for this technique. What I have found is the best ones for this technique are opaque. So you'll see I've got ink all over me, but the ones that say they are opaque on the label, those work best for this technique. So I'm going to take one here and just lay out some color on my plate. I'm going to do one color, and I'm going to do it on a plain piece of paper first, just so you can kind of get a sense for how this works. First of all, you'll see that they apply nice and smoothly. That's part of what I really like about them. You want to work on a very clean plate for this technique. We're going to put our image face down. And you don't want to manipulate the paper a lot. You don't want oil bubble or air bubbles. You don't want any air bubbles. So if you can see them, try to get rid of them and then stop manipulating it. Because the more you manipulate it, the more the oil paint is going to move around underneath. Now, how to tell it's ready? It's super simple. As you're looking at this, I think you might be able to see it on the camera. If not, I'll try and take some closer up shots. But here, this eyeball, I can see that coming through almost like a white text. I can see the black text coming through as white on the reverse side of the image, and that pretty much tells me that we're ready to go as soon as I start seeing that come through. Now, I haven't noticed that there's any hurry up time. It's not something you have to be fast about, but until you see that coming through, you don't want to pick it up. Once you see it, you can pick it up. And we'll just take this back. Okay, so as I pick it up, you can see there's still some leftover stuff with the brayer there that I can see, maybe a little extra ink. But the beauty of it is that I can go in. First of all, I can take this. Let me be clear about what I like about this technique. I can actually reuse this image if I want to in collage by simply applying a baby wipe. Because this is clay coated, paper, I can remove all of the oil paint that I applied to that and actually reuse that image, not for another transfer, but for a collage, so I like that. One of the things you can do is texture. You can go ahead and texture the material on the plate, so I can, and I typically like to use really tiny textures for this, so in this case I'm using the kitchen trivet just to add some detail or interest. As I said, you don't have to rush to do this technique, and now I'm just going to pull this print. For the purposes of this video, I'll pull it on just a plain piece right now. I'll just pull the entire thing. And I'm literally just making good contact. And pulling a print. I want you to see the level of detail that comes out on these prints. So there's just so much that you can work with there. Isn't that really fun? You typically can't get much of a ghost print depending on how much you put down, but you can always give that a try and see, because there's always something useful there, and this is where I typically go with little leftover tags and stuff, just to get that really nice hint of an image. Isn't that cool? Now we're at the point where this needs to be cleaned off. Now to clean off oil paint from the RNF pigment sticks, a drop of baby oil will do it, or you can even do a pickup print with a little bit of acrylic paint. For a pickup print, which is what we call this kind of technique, you don't want a fluid acrylic. You want something that's got a little bit of a body to it. If it's too fluid, it's not going to pick up anything. And I think, as I've told many of you before, I use different brayers for different mediums. So I'm just going to prime my brayer with this paint and then roll it across the image to get a nice even coating of paint on all the surfaces where the oil paint was. And then just take your piece of paper and place it on top of this. And get a pickup print. And we still get another usable print out of that. Isn't that cool? Just apply some baby oil to the surface, just a little bit, and then clean off. And we have the oil paint left over from the printing session in that color. That was a black and white image, and it was a very bold graphic image. This image is color and has a lot of fine detail. Look at all that texture around her face. And that's really all I want to capture. So I'm going to grab a color. Let's just pull out this quinacridone magenta and lay some down on the plate. This is another nice opaque color. And I usually put enough on the plate that would basically cover where the image is that I want to capture. You can clean your brayer between colors if you don't want the colors to mix. I don't mind if this blue mixes with that magenta though, so I'm not going to do that much cleaning because I like when colors mix. I wouldn't apply this as thinly as I would apply like an acrylic paint. I apply it a little thicker than that. And once again, making note of where like her eyeballs are. Press that image out. Hope for no air bubbles on the important bits. Now, right around here, there is an eyeball. If you're having trouble locating a focal point to look for the soak-through point where it starts bleeding through the paper, you can always hold your plate up to a light source, and then you'll be able to see exactly where those focal points are. For myself, I can already see this eyeball, and all the texture around her face on that hood is starting to come through on the other side of this paper. So that's very helpful. I think, as I said in an earlier portion of this, if you have a whole bunch going on the back side of the paper, it's hard to see that point where you've got success. But once you get confident in doing this, you really won't need to look. You'll know it's working. But when you're just getting started, we're looking for all that detail is starting to come through. So let's go ahead and just make good contact and pull the print. Pull the magazine off of the paper, magazine off of the plate, And you can see all that ink, which has been pulled off of the paper and is left on the plate. Now, more solid areas typically tend to get bubbles in them, and that's just because we're literally have air bubbles that are trapped between the magazine page and the paper because this is a non-porous surface. But all the detail that we want is also here. So that's a lot of fun to see. And once again, you could take this and clean it off with a baby wipe to reuse it in another print. For now, beautiful print here. Let's try something very different. As you can see, color works just as well as black and white. So we're going to go ahead and just pull this once again on a piece of plain paper so you can see the level of detail that we're getting. So this is just a piece of plain copy paper. I tend to use Hammer Mill Color Copy Digital because it's made for printing color prints. It does a really good job of letting these colors pop on the page as well. Also, I will say that the gel press has a wonderful habit of self-registering. So if you make sure one edge of this paper is down on the page, you can always go back down if you need to pick up more detail. Like if you don't get all the eyes or a little bit more mouth detail you want to get, you can always go back down. So there you can see a lovely print. Isn't that amazing? And the ability to capture all that detail on a pull. That's our initial print. Let's see if we have any ghost print hiding in there. We'll grab it on a tag just to see. Obviously don't get the eyeball there where the hole in the tag is. That wouldn't work too well. And just make good contact. Ghost prints can be finicky. They may give you nothing, they may give you everything. But we're going to go ahead and attempt it. Very faint, but an interesting start to the next piece. And then whatever's left on here, we can do, again, as before, a pickup print. So that's where you take a little bit of acrylic paint. And this is an unnecessary step. You don't have to do this part. But I tend to want to use every bit of what I have on this plate. So unlike other techniques where I've seen it's kind of a one-hit wonder, I want to be able to get everything that's there. If it's there, I want to be able to get it. So with the pickup print, just coat it thoroughly, thinly, and evenly. You need to be able to see like the other color peeking through, and then that will give you the ability to have that media adhere to your paper and pull that media off the plate with the adhesive properties of the acrylic paint working with you. So you can usually effectively get an initial print, a ghost print, and oftentimes a decent pickup print as well from one application of the oil pigment stick. So super fun to work with. Works with color or black and white. Okay, so cleaned off. I have several pieces here that I could use for this process. Let's see what we've got here. That one's awfully cute. Sorry, it's the selection process. It's difficult. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one. I think that's really cute and just has a lot going on with it. And it's fun. A lot of technique and a lot of detail on there. So, let's get a fun color. I think we're going to get some in gold. I think we're going to go back and use the quinacridone magenta again. And I'll lay this out. Use my brayer for the oil paints. So it's all about a smooth application. You don't want to see lines, and you don't want to make it too thin. You do need enough oil to be able to soak through the magazine paper and pull that ink onto the plate. Okay, so we're going to take this image. Once again, I'm looking at this part here, which I know is a great part where her print is showing. try to get out air bubbles, you won't be able to do it all the time. Just because the paper is so very non-porous. But you can already see that black and white print from her outfit, where her bag is, her hair coming over here. You see the white coming through? That's your clue that the oil is doing its work, that it's soaking through the paper. And that's really all we needed to do. Soak through, grab that ink, and deposit it onto the plate. So let's go. Pull that print. Look at the detail. Isn't that amazing? So much detail there in that print. And this time, once again, I can take this and use a baby wipe and clean it off if I want to use it for another print itself. But this is just so much fun to work with. I'm going to take that and do a little bit of fun with the Caramel Art textures, just to add to her hair. Pull that a little bit, that's kind of fun. And I can go on to that outfit, which already has a really fun print, but also to put this bit of words from letters on a checkerboard onto that as well. So it just says a subtle print, but you can manipulate, and that's the fun part of it. Alright, we have several prints here. The more ghosty it is, the better you're going to be able to see things, so this has a lot of good open spaces. You know, something like this, obviously. This might be fun. We'll consider it. Let's just flip through the ones that I've held aside. I'm going to avoid things that have a similar color scheme, so that may help me already just kind of limit my choices. I think we're going to go with this one. Let's see. Oh, decisions. This is a really cool print. I think I want to use it. So, bad girl. But I think this is a really cool print, and it's got a lot going on already, but no focal point in the center. So, I'm going to go ahead and use it for this print. And as you can see, I didn't have to hurry. I don't have to wait for things to dry. I didn't have to hurry and do anything because it's oil paint, so it's got a lot of open time as far as its ability to be manipulated and to have that print pulled. Self-register and pick it up. So much fun. So there we go. You have all that image integrity, and you've layered it on top of an existing print, and all of that fun stuff just coming through. So there's nothing in between the print and your paper, which is super fun. So you can print this on top of old prints all day long. And let's see if we have something here that would work well for the ghost print, perhaps. This is a very subtle pattern, so let's see if we can get that. Ghost prints? Maybe not. Sometimes you can't get them. This all comes down to how absorptive is your paper. You know, did it pull it all up? Did you put down enough to begin with? So ghost prints, you may not get anything, but you haven't sacrificed anything either, because, oh, but still, look at the level of detail, and sometimes it works really great. So you have all that detail, so much fun to work with to create a piece. Very much fun. And whatever's left, you can use for a ghost print. Last one, and we're going to go ahead and put a layer of paint down. Because I can see so much image left on the plate, I hate wasting it. I always like to get that third and final pickup print out of it if possible. But this step honestly could just be where you're cleaning off the plate. Or you could actually get a print that you want out of it. So totally up to you as to how you wanted to do this part. So we're going to go ahead and pull a print. This one I'm actually going to pull on top of something that could use a little muting. So I'm going to do that on purpose. That Titan buff will cover up some of the background from that print. And when you're doing a pickup print, the first thing in will be the last thing facing out. So the buff is now acting as a backdrop. And so it's going to cover up some of the print in the background, but you're still going to get that oil paint image transfer on top. So let's see what we got, shall we? And we have a nice print. See, another useful print out of it. We still have her face, we still have her outfit. A lot of fun things we can do with this. So, and it cleans off the plate so I can move on to my next print. So, that's it for today. I'll show you some other prints just so you can see the level of detail on some prints I pulled before we got together. Just for inspiration, so you can see some of the prints I pulled before we got together. This one, which I did directly on top of a background. Just a lot of fun, and textured her outfit. This I showed you basically how to do today with a similar print. But that soft and ghost feel, very nice. The blonde models always give you a good look. For the men in your life, pulling a print with that Payne's Gray is just a lot of fun. I believe that's Katy Perry, and she's on top of a cobwebbed background that I had already done. Oh goodness, I almost forgot. Words. All of the words that exist in a print and in a magazine article also pull this from this effect. So this print, I actually just did the words of an article on top of the rose mandala. So yes, words do work too. And lastly, a puppy dog. Just to show you again the level of detail. This image had a lot of contrast going on, but you captured all the detail, and just super fun. I can't imagine how fun this would be to use on a project. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll be following up some point later in the week, probably on the weekend, with some pictures of different projects I've made using these prints. Thank you for watching.